Hi YouTube, this is my build guide video for playing as a Necromancer culture in Age of Wonders 4 after the Archon DLC dropped. I think they finally nailed it. It's taken a while, but it feels really good to get your souls, spend your souls. Never feels like you have enough. You're always bouncing back between souls and mana, which one you're spending. The actual units feel good. Having the pop up after combat of which units you'd like to resurrect feel good. All of the undead synergies just sort of line up well, and the addition of I think the Warlock hero really elevated the experience, because now you're just sort of not locked to like generic mage and the Death Knight. Now you have additional heroes. So first things first is I'm going to go through the ruler, then I'm going to go through the heroes, then I'm going to talk about the society traits and the uh, racial traits that I chose, and then finally we're going to go through the tomes. If you just want a quick guide, I'm going to have the whole build linked in the description, in addition to builds for the three heroes I'm going to talk about that I think are the best for the culture. And with that, let's get started. So I chose a Wizard King. They're a lot nerfed from where they were, but additional mana, because you're bouncing back and forth between mana and souls, is pretty good. I think it's definitely a weaker bonus than some of the other rulers get, but it's fine. More casting points, both in combat and in the world, always welcome. And channeling ritual, obviously they changed it so you can't use it at the start anymore, because it starts on cooldown, but it's still super strong because in the late game we're going to have some really powerful spells and battlefield enchantments that you're going to want to slam right away. And if you can get, a slam battlefield enchantment that blinds everyone, and then do an AoE morale buff on your whole team, and you just start critting everything, it does feel really good to be able to double spell like that. Um, but I will say that your type of rule is just sort of going to affect the type of gameplay. Wizard King does feel a lot weaker early, and if you wanted to play as a mortal champion, as you'll see, we're pretty high into order, so we're going to be leaning into more of the vassalization gameplay, and the bonus to free cities you get from the mortal champion's nice, in addition to just him leveling up faster. But you will also have a little bit of a weaker early game there compared to, say, a dragon or a giant, where you'd be able to just sort of steamroll some early fights and make a really powerful ruler, and just sort of let that carry you in the early game, which is definitely a sort of different way to play the game. Finally, the Eldritch Scion. I haven't played much, so I'm not sure how the rituals would interact with everything else. I know they use the spell slots last I checked, so that could be an issue because there's some spells you want to save, some spells you want to prep, and a lot of big spells and summons and stuff you just want to be casting. So I don't know, maybe it could be good, maybe not, but I think at the end of the day, it's just what ruler you choose is just going to affect how you play the game. You're definitely play more defensively early as a Wizard King or a Mortal Champion, and then for a Dragon or a Giant, you can go out more aggressively. And then the Eldritch Scion, I'm again not really sure. So that's that. That was my choice there. So let's go into the classes. For hero types, I think there's 3 types of heroes that are really strong. So the Warlock, let me just go into the menu here to show you what I mean. So the Warlock is the new mage offshoot. They split mage into like Elementalist, Warlock, and I think one other. So this is going to be focused on debuffs and the undead. So it's particularly synergistic with this type of gameplay because you can summon undead at the start of battle, either a Bone Wyvern or 2 zombies. I'm not sure which one's stronger, but I just went for the Bone Wyvern because it's been good to me. But the Warlock itself, I would go down here, get your Bone Wyvern, come down here, get your Corrupted Soul, come here, finish your tree over here to the Capstone. It's just a huge single target nuke that resets your cooldowns when it kills things. You could get Dark Writ, but I don't think the damage is high enough to justify it, plus I really like the unstable summons. And then I would come down here to get Siphon Blessing, get disrupted on your Hex Pact, get your auto hit on your Hex Pact, and then get +1 range. And that's how I build the Warlock. Obviously, as a Wizard King, at some point you want to get your channeling ritual down to 0. This is just like extra points ahead. I don't think you need this. And then here are the signature skills I'd take. I'd take this on all of the heroes. I think it's just the best way to go. So it's going to be Shadow, Shadow, Shadow Order, because the Paragon of Shadow still sucks. They really need to rework it, but I digress. So first is Soul Draining Strikes. Soulbound is essentially the Necromancer debuff. It does 2 things. The first is it increases the soul gains you get from killing that unit by a flat 2. Very strong early. It tapers off later, but generally more soul gain is always better, because there's a ton of ways to spend it, and you're really, obviously I have like a ton now, but it's like the turn before I'm gonna win the game, right? So I haven't been spending them. But you're always going to want to have more souls for your economy, and the other half is it has a chance of becoming a zombie when you kill that unit. So pretty good. And then the second half here is it inflicts remorse, which is the morale debuff. You'll notice that some of the undead, both like the enchantments and some of the creatures, lean into more of the morale gameplay. It's not a super big focus, but it definitely is something that we're going to lean into just because it's already there as a synergy. So it'd be smart just to sort of take advantage of that. Yeah. And then the big one here is your second adept, you get Unholy Leader. At a certain point, you're going to want to transition your stacks into being fully undead, especially once you get your racial transformation, and then you want to try and get all your heroes to level 8 at a minimum, so you can get this. It shortens up 2 of the undead's biggest weaknesses, which is fire and spirit resistance, in addition just more damage hit points. Great all around. Spirit Breaker War is good for melee heroes, but definitely I don't think it, worth it for a Warlock where you really don't want to be adjacent to anything. Master Showers again, Exhume Undead. This just summons a tier 3 unit, and if you summon it in the middle of things, it'll give them some debuffs. So this is either going to summon a Banshee or a Corrupted Soul, both of which are like morale debuffing units that can, the Banshee can like teleport around, and then the Corrupted Soul has pass through, so it can go through things. But yeah, Undead summons are always good. It also synergizes with Decaying Dissolution over here. And then finally, Paragon Order. It gives everything in your army Resurgence, so nothing dies. And lead by example. Whenever you kill, and by the time you get 16 for this, you should be strong enough to be able to just nuke something with your single target shot. The all friendly units text on this is super important because there's a ton of summons, both like through the tree and also like the necromancers in gameplay and some of the spells you use that essentially they're like combat summons that get summoned in battle or whatever. So anything that says all friendly units as opposed to just like here where it just is like units in the stack or whatever is going to be super beneficial. And because we're sort of leaning more into the morale, just free hit points and morale for killing things is very strong. So that's the Warlock. Very happy with it. Next, let's go into the Death Knight. So the Death Knight's the other thing, one of the other 3 heroes that I think is really strong for this culture. Again, you just beeline here, get your Bone Wyvern, and then I would grab Second Wind, and then I would come down here and go through Warseeker, Killing Momentum. I know I'd mentioned morale gameplay, and obviously you think you want like Vicious Killer and Willbreaker, but you're gonna get Vicious Killer naturally through the build. So realistically, you're only getting this for Willbreaker, and then 1 stack of Remorse and 2 Weaken. I don't think is worth it, but I think this choice is up to you. I just prefer Warseeker so that the Death Knight itself can just sort of become an unstoppable wrecking ball. And then you'll see this is only level 14, so I'd obviously take the order thing here, and then come down here, go damage, terrifying aura, and then probably just more damage, and either the 2 points of endurance training over here, Spirit Breaker over here, or maybe some HP. But yeah, so that's the Death Knight. One important thing to know with the Death Knight is you can craft a shield that gives you defensive masters, which makes you a lot tankier. So that you always put yourself in defense mode. So I think that's the best way to do that. And then finally, the last thing that I think is really good, that's the new trait, is the Battlesaint. So this is like the Paladin, and I think it's really cool to do sort of the undead Paladin thing, especially because we're leaning more into the Order. So they have a mechanic called Fervor that gives you status resistance, and then you're going to spend Fervor. So the first thing you get to spend Fervor is the Warrior's Fervor that gives you temp HP and Strengthen just on yourself. In addition, you can get a point here to have it dispel negative status effects per stack. This helps you gain Fervor whenever you take damage, so you're pretty much always going to be a capped. And then come down here, deal some more radiant damage, and then this is why I think it's so strong, is the Martyr's Blood. So whenever this unit's HP reaches 33 Leo, it gains Steadfast, which if you play before, it's just a super strong ability. Basically just makes you immortal for a round. But on top of that, you're also going to get all friendly units. Again, that big keyword, so it's going to affect all the summons and everything. Grace, which is just more tankiness, and Fortune, which is great because it stacks with the crit-centric morale gameplay. And then finally, I don't think Weakening Aura is very strong, so I just came over here, more defense, Inner Grace, and then Defensive Master. So because Defensive Master is in the tree, you can actually run the Giant Two-Handed Sword like you saw and play as a Charger, which is really good for breaking up defensive formations. So I'm a big fan of that. And then finally you get Smite, which is a 0 AP attack, which is crazy. And it's another way to spend your stacks of Fervor. So it doesn't generate Fervor on itself, but 0 unit attack, it's going to be 10 for each stack of Fervor. It also triggers Lifesteal from the Whiteborn transformation, which is really cool. And then finally, just more like tankiness. You can even grab Warding Bond if you have like a particular unit you want to keep safe. And then, you know, just the standard stuff here, additionally Spirit Breaker. Another thing that I really like about the Battlesaint, in addition to the huge AoE buff, is the tree's pretty streamlined. You see I do, you know, move a little out of the way, but it's a pretty small tree, which means you have a ton of skills to work with. So I was able to, you know, additionally pick up Spirit Breaker Aura, easily get both the upkeep and the endurance training, you know, bonus tankiness, and I'm not even at max level, right? So I could still, if I wanted to, get Warding Bond, you know, get some more status resistance, get 10% crit chance. I don't think Condemnation's very good, but yeah, so I'd probably get like 10% crit chance, and then Warding Bond would probably be my last 2 points here. Yeah, but yeah, so that's the Battlesaint. So those are the 3 I'd recommend: Battlesaint, Warlock, and Death Knight. Death Knight with Shield and Sword. Warlock with staff, starting off with, if it's your ruler, just the Necromancer staff, and if not, crafting a Necromancer staff or any other staff. And then finally, I like having a stun staff just because you have so much status vulnerability in your kit that even though it's only 60%, it's sometimes easy to land a stun. So if you can't just one-shot things, nabbing a stun on them is really good. All right, so that's the heroes, and then let me talk about the culture. So, I guess let's do race first. So let's talk about race. So you know, went to the ancient race. I think it looks really cool, especially when you get the Whiteborn. You get the sort of darker skin and the skeletal outline. And I still have like my Norwooding hair in the back, but obviously, there's no mechanical benefit to that. I just prefer those for specifically the undead transformation. When I did this playthrough, I was not sure how much of the new undead units I was going to be using, how much I was going to be relying on the Necromancer, so I just did the tried and true Arcane Focus Keen-Sighted. And then I just took a tank trait. I think Resilience is probably the best tank trait just because status resistance is so strong. Debuffs in this game are so detrimental that having status resistance, especially because it applies to your hero and ruler as well, is super strong. And I wanted to try out the new negative traits. So Uncooperative, I think this one's really good, and because you can just spread out your units and then it doesn't do anything. It makes it harder to use defensive stance and stuff, but I think that's fine. You know, but let me talk about what I would actually do now that I've played through and sort of refine the build more. So I would actually take athletics by a landslide. One of the biggest issues is the Necromancer units you get are, which you're usually going to want to have like one a stack, is they only have 32 movement, and they're not an optional mounted unit, so they are super slow on the world map, and you're going to be limited constantly. Everything else is the dragons are flying around, the knights are teleport. It's almost teleporting with how fast horses go, and mounted heroes or whatever. You're going to be slowed to a crawl if you don't have this because of your necromancers. So I would 100% take athletics. The second one I think is more optional. You have 2 points to play around with, or 3 if you want to take one of the negative traits, one of the new ones. You can only take one if it'll take it off. I think you could take uncooperative. Like I said, you just have to spread out a little. It's fine. I don't think the AI is programmed properly to use this, so if you're auto-resolving, it's probably not the best. I would probably never take coward just because we're focusing more on morale, and then I'd never take vulnerable to physical or magic. It's just too much of a debuff in my opinion. You could take weak constitution. I just think it's an annoying like gameplay loop, having to like wait so much. The difference to that is probably if you're playing like barbarian, uh, then you could, because you're going to have so many outposts around the map and you're able to move so fast with the ritual of alacrity, that you know potentially the health regen is not going to be as big of an issue. But I do think uncooperative is probably the best if you want one of these. Careless is also fine. Obviously, the Battlesaint and the Death Knight, it's annoying because they're going to be in defensive mode. But most of the other units we're playing, like the non-hero units, aren't really going to have defensive mode active much. The angels, the giants, the dragons. So this one's also kind of fine, I think. So I would take one of these too. But so the second one I take light-footed, mostly because I found one of the biggest issues is with summoning. How many units you're summoning in a battle, especially for the siege battles, you're going to run into the issue where your units are going to get walled off and stuck, and you're going to lose out on attacks and stuff just because you're unable to position properly, and positioning is super important. So that's what I go for. If you want to, you can double up on the morale gameplay, get like cheerful cold-blooded, or take one of the adaptations if you like playing underground, or mounted masters with your whatever culture you're playing. Sneaky is probably the best for damage, or just like tough or some other. I think overwhelmed tactics is really good if you like the reverse of careless, because again the crit chance is really good with the morale based gameplay. So yeah, so that's what I would do for that. And I guess while I'm here, we'll do the society. So I ended up going with architect, but I don't think I really used it to its potential. One of the things is pretty much all of our units are going to be from Tome. You're going to be summoning undead Tome units, and the racial units we're going to be using are from Tomes as well. So it doesn't really matter too much what culture you pick. It's just going to affect your gameplay. One thing I do recommend is you definitely want to have a culture with astral affinity, or if you pick a culture without astral affinity, probably taking an astral trait at the bottom. Because if I go over here, we are very heavily, because of the tomes, shadow and order. But the astral has a bunch of really good. So for example, surge spellcasting, it says reduce the cost. It doesn't say reduce the mana cost. So this actually does reduce the soul cost of your combat spells. In addition to just like more combat points, and world map points, and just being able to get discounts and more knowledge is really important because we want to beeline to our tier 4 tomb as soon as possible. So I think it's very important to have, more so than these other three, to have the astral line. These have some good ones, but I think you could definitely skip them just because of how powerful the Shadow Tree is. So let me go back to. So for the side of the Architects, you get to choose your affinity. I chose a double Astral, which for reasons I just explained. You can also go for Mystic and School of Summoning because all of your zombie units and your skeleton units, anything you summon post combat, are going to be um, classified as Mystic Origin. So the Bone Dragons and stuff, eventually, which you're going to want to run around with a bunch of, those are Mystic Origin units, so you get a bunch of value there. Additionally, it makes your early game summoning more beneficial and easier. Summoning your angels late game. So I think that's the best over potential or attunement. Finally, I think you can also go with Oathsworn Harmony, just because we're leaning into the vassalization gameplay. It's very easy to get your Oath up if you wanted to play with more nature affinity. You can use the benefits there if you wanted to play Oathsworn. Um, and then Barbarian is also just very strong. It gives you some unique affinities, and being able to move around the map super quick. And Barbarian just has generally good units. The Berserkers are super strong tanks. The Scouts are really good for being able to place your outposts all over the map. I just think they're really good. But I would definitely take an Astral trait here. So let me talk about the traits. And I'll go back to Architects. So the first trait you're always going to want to take is Visions of Ruin. This is a new trait. It's like a prophecy trait. So there's 3 vision traits. So Vision of Promise is like a mid game. You have to interpret the vision. Vision of Destiny is something that just happens like right away. And Visions of Ruin is sort of like a late game one. Vision of Ruin, the death specifically, is very powerful because it actually, let me see if I can even pull up the quest here. Yeah. It actually, on the start, when you select the Desolations of Death Ruin thing, the reward for that is, that you get just for clicking it, is you get 5 soul economy per turn, right? And you'll see, so Vision of Ruin, you get 5 per turn. Early on, this is really important because you don't have any sort of soul game economy going other than just killing units. And in order to raise units, it's like 15 souls for each of the like tier 1 units that you raise. So being able to have souls just trickling in early game is very important. And for that reason, I think that trait's very invaluable. And then when you finish it, you get the Age of Death, which gives you an additional 20 souls, and your ruler becomes what, like a Prophet of Destruction. He gets some other buffs that I don't remember off the top of my head, but it also reduces the healing of all non-undead units by half, just for everyone across the board. So very strong debuff for other players. I did want to point out that for the quest, I ran into a bug that I reported. Hopefully it'll be fixed. But if you get over 10 heroes in the crypt before you finish the death rain, it will actually bug out. And what you have to do to fix that is you have to sell, when you hit the 500 and it doesn't work, you have to sell heroes remains from your crypt until you go below it. So just get to 9, and then it'll be 9 out of 10, and then you have to go in and kill another hero. And then that'll fix it and actually complete the quest properly for you. But so that's Society trait. And then for the second one, I just chose Keepers of Knowledge. I just like the playstyle. And this trait's just very strong. Good alignment. As you'll see, we actually are. You're playing an undead, but you're playing a pure good undead, very righteous. So that's like fun flavor-wise. But All-Seeing is very powerful for early on getting knowledge income off of your Whispering Stones. And I count it as essentially a parry income because you were going to buy that right away. So whatever, like 150, 175 it costs, you can just count that as like a bonus to this. In addition, you'll get Allegiance. You'll be able to sort of like leapfrog people in Free City Allegiance whenever your turbo rushing your knowledge, which is you really want to do. And you get a little bit later. Open borders is kind of tough to get going early, and by the time you sort of get around to it, 10 knowledge isn't like a lot, but you can never have enough knowledge in this game. So that's what I went with. The only issue is it is a shadow affinity, so you're denying yourself like more. As you'll see, like just with this generic build, we're like very heavily slanted here. Um, so if you wanted to, say for example, play uh, a non-astral affinity race, like the Oathsworn or the Barbarians, what I would instead pick is the Lee Vision's a ruin. I would pick one of the Astrals. Mana Channelers is okay, but it only reduces the mana cost, so I don't think we're getting the most value out of it. Gifted Casters is always pretty strong, but again, it only reduces the mana cost. Um, but bonus world map casting points. Maybe if you're not playing a Wizard King, that could be helpful. I'd say you probably want to go with either Ancient Wise Ones just to turbocharge um, your research, Hermit Kingdom just for the initial benefits. They did nerf this, but it's still strong. Or the new Astrological Diviners. So on your 10th turn, if you line it up so that you complete a city structure on your 10th turn, and maybe even have one that you can hurry, you can easily get a big infusion of knowledge. And then the unit thing is, uh, you know, it counts raised units, which is really good, but it is just a really strange thing to play around. I think if you wanted to do it, you would be playing around the turn 10 200 knowledge. And maybe if you had a couple cities set up by then, like if you can rush a second city and then potentially line it up so that you can get 400 knowledge on turn 10, that would be pretty crazy. But it's a very more difficult thing to play around. And if you just want to take it easy, I'd probably go Ancient Wise Ones or Gifted Casters or Hermit Kingdom. Yeah, and then there's other ones, but I think you want the Astral Affinity so bad that I would probably go with one of those over Keepers of Knowledge if you're playing like a non-astral thing. And if you want to just place Keepers in this specific setup, like with uh, Astral Architects or Mystic Summoners, I don't know off the top of my head, but because I would pretty much always go Keepers. Pretty much just pick your favorite, I guess, then. But I would probably just do this. And I do think for the architect culture specifically, I didn't really use the mechanics of it very well. It's supposed to be like scaling, but you use your production, and you can't rush the unique buildings to like get scaling damage. I think Mystic are probably better, but it's fine. Also, the architect units are pretty bad early. And by the time they scale them, you're going to have other units that are better that still have the scaling because of the racial enchant they have anyways. So, yeah. But most of your units are tome because they're undead. Alright, so that's that. Sorry if I rambled a bit there. And then finally we're going to go over the tomes. So the tomes, let me pull them up here. As you might have saw on my other screen, so obviously this is a sort of like late game thing, so we have some additional tomes that you wouldn't have normally, but I'm sort of just going to go through them and explain them, and hopefully understand why. So we're starting off with Tome Necromancy. Obviously, early on Shadow Affinity is really good, because the early Shadow traits are super strong, especially the one where you kill a hero and you get a bunch of free stuff. So early Shadow is good. Additionally, you also get the Soul Harvest passive, so you can actually start generating souls, which is very important. You definitely want to have this right off the bat. And you can also animate heroes, which is good because when you animate a hero, instead of resurrecting them, it costs souls instead of mana, which can be a bit of a challenge early game because it's, I think, 60 souls to resurrect a hero. Actually, let me just check. Crypt, animate. Oh, it won't even tell me unless I increase. Okay, whatever. I think it's 60 souls. but 0 mana, so it's, potentially pretty strong as a way to get a free hero and not spend any gold or whatever. And additionally, it lets you use other races, heroes, but you still get the undead synergies. So that's a good. But yeah, basically turn it on. Soulwell. I'm not the best at like managing the early special provinces. I usually like finish the cities and then do this, but it counts as a research post, but it makes mana and souls, so pretty good. But luckily, the 5 soul income that you would normally get from this, we are getting from Vision of Ruin. So this can either double it if you want to build it early, or you just focus on other structures. Skeleton reanimation. This is the bread and butter at the start. You can resummon racial units after combat. They keep their racial traits. They just become undead and they become skeletons. It's a good time. Necrotize, just a nice little single target buff. It gives the decaying stack, which reduces their healing and just does damage. Does some straight up damage, and then it has guaranteed to become a zombie as opposed to the soulbound 30% chance. So just good single target nuke. And it only costs mana. It doesn't cost any souls. Soul collection, I think, not good. The other ways that we can get soul income, 30 gold is a lot, but you can pick it up if you really need the souls. I just think the gold income is far more important early, so I didn't end up picking it. Necromancer is a bread and butter unit, tier 1 tome unit. We're going to use the whole game. It's a support unit, which is important for a lot of synergies, and they come with Raise Undead, in addition to, and 2 more. Okay, in addition to an undead steroid that gives undead temporary hit points and strengthened. And then just Death Blast just does damage. Very good unit. Very good unit. And then this just makes it so that your Necromancers inflict decaying. Rotting Explosion is okay. My issue is that it kills the unit, and it costs souls, which early you're not going to have a lot of, so I didn't end up going for this. So that's the Necromancy. Second tome is Faith. So this is also a really strong tome, specifically because we're going more order focused, so you want to lean into the vassalization free city stuff. And Faithful is you're using the entire game. You're always going to be casting this spell. Being able to, like I said, leapfrog people on free cities in order to vassalize them first is a key component of that part of gameplay. And this is just a bonus that really no one else is going to have. It's super strong. Initially stays amending, so this makes it so your Necromancers, because the support units, your Necromancers have Faithful, just reducing their upkeep, and Mending Touch, which just gives them another heal. It's a melee range heal, which is, kind of awkward, but it's a free 0 mana heal. If it just had Faithful, it would be worth taking. Army Heal, very strong spell. Just heal World Map Army 25 points. If your regen's lacking or you don't want an extra turn, just bam. Very mana intensive, especially early on, but great spell. Covenant, for every city little unstable, you get knowledge mana, just free city structure, and then when it's later, knowledge mana, great, love having those. Or you can get the Light Spirit just to start having a summon spell on the map, right? I mean, this is good. It's essentially like a Necromancer. It's a support unit, so it gets all of those, and it's something you spend your mana on. But we're going to get a mana summon in the next tome, so I didn't end up going for this, and just got all the things I wanted, and then the remnants from the last tome. Additionally, you also get the Abbey. Very good. It's a research post that gives you more research. Not much to say. It's good. And then tier 2. So tier 2, you would think that we would go for the Tome of Souls, but actually I found the Tome of... Let me see if it's here. I found that the Tome of Souls didn't have what I was looking for. Here we are. So it offers you Soulbound, summoning a Banshee for souls, and being able to make bone horrors are the big ones, right? And then we already have a heal, so we don't need this. And then Soul Overflow is a big buff, but we're gonna be having our buffs in as order buffs, so this doesn't get the later on the structure benefit. So I think this was kind of superfluous. We already have Soul Harvest, we already have a heal. Bone Horrors, they're good, but I don't think they're worth getting an entire tome good. Because the skeletons are perfectly serviceable units. Soulbinders, we already have so many things inflicting soulbound with the heroes and then other stuff later on that I don't think this is like this is I mean yeah 10% more damage, but it only works on the necromancers, so I think it's fine. And then Banshee, a summon for souls, 45 souls early is a lot to ask. So instead of Tome of Souls, I ended up going with Tome of the Dew Herald. So this gives us Corrupted Soul, which is an undead unit, a tier 3 undead unit that we can summon with mana. So it's not going to cut into our soul economy. Like I said earlier with the balancing of like the mana and the souls. And it also has benefits with all the morale-based gameplay. So I think that's really good. And then essentially this whole thing is morale-based, right? So Prelude to Doom, this is an army spell. It's okay. I don't think it's that good, but it's if you really need like an army spell early on, this is pretty good. Joy Siphoners, really good. Stacks on top of any other morale stuff, and then yoinking morale is super strong for morale-based and crit-based gameplay. Cruel Weaponry, just it doesn't affect the Necromancers, but it's going to affect all of our shock and shield units. So it doesn't affect mythic units either, but it's fine and it's very good early. Cause Despair, I think this is really good. It's similar things to the AoE debuff from earlier. Like it's not going to have any of the it's not going to have the bonus from the structure network because we're going to get the order buff one. But yeah, actually you also get Doom Death Trench. We don't get the bonus mana and knowledge here because because we're playing good. But it's a conduit that gives you mana and knowledge that you can build on any square. So it's strong enough just for that. After Doom Herald, we're going to go into another Order Tome, and this is the brand new Tome of the Virtue. So we're going to have some virtuous undead. So they have faith and virtue in addition to souls and doom. So these are all good. I didn't want to mess with the summon vigil because this we just got a summon with the corrupted soul, so that's why I didn't bother with it there. Virtuous spirit, great minor transformation, so it'll stacks with our major transformation coming up. Spirit resistance is great because we have a spirit weakness, so that can help shore that up. And additionally, when it gets below a certain amount of maximum hit points, they gain free tank stats, and ignoring casualties is very strong for being able to keep dealing damage. Paladin, really like this unit. Smite puts it into defense mode, so it's an attack that goes into defense mode. Lay on Hands is kind of awkward because it's your whole turn and it doesn't put you in defense mode, but it's good at like the start, like the first turn if you have like weakened units, and then just a basic melee attack. So big fan of this. I think they're a really solid frontliner. I think the only time I wouldn't take these if you were somehow trying to do this with like an industrial culture or something and you did not want a frontliner, or maybe barbarians, you just try and focus on getting more like the berserkers. But even then I think it's still worth having a couple paladins just to potentially have the defense mode and spread to your allies and free healing. So big fan of this unit, and it's also a racial unit, so it'll benefit from all of your undead nonsense. House of Charities, I think this is really good. It essentially trades some of your gold income for double that. So double food and double production. So you're basically turning 10% of your gold income into like 4 times what it was and just spreading it out into food and production. Very strong. And then finally, Heroic Stand. I think this is broken. So essentially it means if you have enough mana you can solo anything in the game because it gives you steadfast, and it cleanses all your negative status effects, and you ignore penalties from casualties. So even if you have like one unit left, it'll deal damage as if it was a full stack. It can't die, and you're cleansing any debuff it has. With like the death magic from here, where you keep getting casting points, it's pretty absurd. Um, the things you can just sort of solo because it only costs 20, right? So if you can finagle like 2 kills or whatever, it's just very strong buff spell. All right, so that's the tier 2 tomes. Let's go to tier 3, and the first one we're going to beeline to is Great Transformation. This tome is awesome. Obviously, unfortunately, no structure here, but we're going to want everything in here. Notably, so Whiteborn is your major race transformation. So it's going to turn you guys undead with all of the, all the benefits, and it also gives you a lifesteal. So you're going to get your temporary HP attack, and then you're also, because you're undead type, you're going to benefit from all the undead buffs we have. Notably, this does cost 100 souls now, which is even at this point in the game, a non-insignificant amount. So you are going to probably have to save up souls for a couple turns in order to start casting this, which is something to think of when you're doing research. Bone Dragon transformation. So you can spend 100 souls if you have killed tier 4 or 5 units in order to turn them into a Bone Dragon. Really cool. Big fan of this unit. Late game, you can just throw these all over the place, and if they die, whatever, you summon another one because everyone's got tier 4 and 5 units. Really strong, really fun. If you've ever done the Crypt Encounter, Ancient Wonder with the Bone Dragon, you know how good they are. It's just big fan, big fan. Necrotic Spires. It's just a structure for sieges. If you're getting sieged, it also improves your regen in your region. So nice to just have this built at some point. Doing a death, really good. 20 stability, nice. In addition, like I said earlier, easy to make enemies soulbound because it just guarantees it on them, and then 10% more damage. 20 stability is also, free. You can also cast this because it's a friendly city. You can cast this in a vassal city. So if you're helping a vassal or you're like doing combat or whatever there, you can get your free soulbound and 10% damage there too. And then finally Desecrate, or I guess we're Fiddle Legion too, but Desecrate structure. This is when your soul economy is going to go into overdrive. You can cast this on any resource node in your domain, so you're going to want to go around and find them, move the mouse around. 5 soul income every time you cast this for 80 mana. So you're going to want to spam this once you get your Whiteborn transformation done. Spam this. Make sure that everything in your domain is desecrated. And then finally, Fiddle Legion. It just enchants your frontliners, give them more HP and weakening aura. Weakening aura is okay, but it's just a free enchantment that we like. So get this at some point. All right, and then for the second tier 3, there's a couple tier 3s that are really good. Notably, the Prophecies, the new one, has a very strong support unit to get the support buffs, and has a really good siege project. However, and astral and a good structure. However, I think these Tome of Subjugation is where you want to be. The Tyrant Knights are some of the best units in the game if you're even adjacent to morale. Additionally, they are racial units, so you get to benefit from the Whiteborn, all the undead nonsense, and the Joy Siphoners and everything. They also move around the map super fast. If you get a stack of like a Death Knight hero on a horse with a sword and shield, and a bunch of Tyrant Knights, you can move 48 movement a turn. It's crazy. And these units are just great. So that's the main draw of the tome. Secondly, this tome also has a really good siege project. You can essentially just siphon population from other cities, and then you're just going to vassalize the cities anyway, so you don't really care about the population. So getting free pop and this doesn't cost anything to do, and the morale is just like a nice little thing. And then finally, intimidating aura. It's only going to affect your frontline units, but it's fine. It's really good. And then final ultimatum, I think is just too conditional, so I don't like it. And Baron's Palace, I don't really like race mixing in this, so it's because we want to be so undead heavy that this is fine. All right, so that's tier 3, and now finally the big thing we're looking forward to, the brand new Tome of the Revenant. So this is sort of what turns the undead gameplay from where it used to be to the super fun position that it is in now. It's Order and Shadow, Corrupted Undead, Corrupted Archons. It's so strong. So first I'm going to talk about the Necropolis. It's another soul building, counts as a research post, more souls for each research post, but it lets you draft Undead Titans. So Undead Titans, they're essentially giants. They can throw a giant, essentially this is like a rock, but like, flavored differently. You can summon skeletons, they got their heavy charge strike. Additionally, and this is really cool, the Undead Titans, instead of costing gold, they only cost 60 souls, which at this point is a lot easier to get if you've been desecrating all your resource nodes. 0 gold for a mythic tier 4 is crazy. And it has all the undead synergies. Um, these things are great. And they move around relatively quick. They're 40, they have Riverwalk, but for some reason the animation on them walking is really slow. It just like slows I don't know. But so you definitely want to throw up an Necropolis as soon as you get this tome. Just find a place to call it home, and then start training out some undead titans. These things are monsters. And so now that you have tier 4, you have the titans from the Necropolis. You have the Tyrant Knights from the Tome of Subjugation, and you have the Undead Dragons from the Tome of Great Transformation. And then finally, we're going to pick up the last of our big mythics is the Fallen Angel, which is a tier 5. And essentially, they have a chance to dominate units, and if they don't dominate, it just does damage that ignores resistance and inflicts them with a bunch of nonsense. They have a huge AoE damage debuff shooter, and their base attacks just inflict a bunch of debuffs. These things are great, and then it also just has a passive of just whenever an enemy unit dies, you get strength, you get hit points. Really cool. I like and because it's a summon spell, um, it does cost souls to summon, and it doesn't list it here, but it did cost. Let me pull it up here. It does cost mana, if I recall. Yeah, so it does cost 150 mana. Or no, sorry. Where's the? Here it is. Yeah, yeah. Oh no, I could have sworn it was charging me mana, but anyways, 150 is a lot of souls, but these guys are definitely worth it. And 200 casting points is again a lot, but they're a combat summon, so you can summon them wherever you want, which makes them, as long as there's no spelljammer, which makes them really powerful in sort of supporting your sieges and stuff. Where were we? Revenant. Okay, so those are our units, right? You're gonna want stacks of Tyrant Knights. Tyrant Knights, great in multiples. Bone Dragons, you're just gonna have a ton of those. Probably load up a Necromancer in each of your stacks, and then fill it out with like Undead Titans too. Get a Fallen Angel in each stack. It's good. It's a good time. And let's go over the rest of the things in here. Revenant Whispers, great debuffing spell. Much better than Visions of Doom or whatever the other one is. It only works. It's a debuff spell, so it doesn't work on like Ancient Wonders and stuff. But on a siege, it's great because it just gives you 3 skeletons with Undying and 2 stacks Demoralize. Just good. It does cost souls, but you know, You can sort of hold this on layaway until you really need it in an important combat. Chamber of the Righteous to City. It doesn't actually give you anything, but units in the city get natural regeneration, which is similar to like the dragon transformation upgrade. So in combat, you get super tanky. This essentially turns your Tyrant Knights into Warbreeds, which everyone knows how strong those are if you've played with them or against them. So these are crazy. But normally it only counts drafted units, so it won't apply to the Fallen Angel or the dragons. But yeah, natural regeneration is just very strong in combat and out of combat. Finally, Undead Resentment. This goes even further to shore up your Spirit and Fire resistances, and then here's where we get our Vicious Killer. And because it's undead, it's going to apply to everything. And then Unholy Champion, just a combat thing. I don't recall ever using this, but it's just a good in combat buff for one unit, and a little model debuff. It also costs souls. This one you can probably skip, but it's not bad. But yeah, so this tome, between the Titans and the Angels, and getting natural regeneration, really just, not only are you summoning undead, but like, look at some of my stacks here. Here, like, here's my, like, you know, these are all just, I just think it's so cool. I even have like undead paladins, just because it's more varied, you know. It's I really enjoy it. But as you see, a lot of these mentioned earlier are stuck at 32 because we didn't get the athletics form trait for this. I just took just random nonsense. So all right, so once you've got the 4th tome here, the Tome of the Revenant, you're pretty much done. Your build has all the units it's going to use, a ton of buffs. You shored up your weaknesses, you're recruiting, regenerating, stuff, and it's strong. So the final tier 4 tome for next round is, you have a couple options, because we've also at this point, you've got enough affinity for whatever for the tier 5 tome. So tier 4, I'd say usually I'd like to go with Supremacy. Monument of Supremacy, just giving you more draft. Draft is going to be key at this point because you have all your units. You just want to start pumping out huge armies. Anthem of Victory targets all allied units, so it targets all of your summons as well. Helps with morale, 3 strengthen. Great buff spell to load up on your first turn that you can cast. Supreme Magic makes it so that your Necromancers have a little extra damage, and whenever they kill a unit, they explode. Fun little enchant, little explosions, AoE. And then Condemn Army deals damage to enemies. It's a fun little army spell if you want to try and nuke things off the map by spamming mana. Exemplars, I think these are just worse than Tyrant Knights, especially because the Tyrant Knights are regenerating now with natural regeneration. They're good because they're racial. Maybe if you need specifically flying units, if it's like a very mountainous region, these could be worth taking. But generally, I think you should just stick with the Tyrant Knights. But it's an option. So this is just the generic one I'd usually take. Supremacy, I just think it's good. The other options you can take is if you're dealing with a lot of magic damage, you can take Prosperity now for the where is it? Blessed Armors to give your tank units more resistance. Inner Grace, just make it tanky. Shrine of Prosperity is just counts as a conduit, but it still gives you food and a good chunk of gold. Garden of Affluence, just stability. This is okay. Big AoE aura buff. Sorry, not aura buff. Order buff. Very good. Staves of Grace, just makes it so that your necromancers are tankier and they start giving out grace and have a big AoE dispel. So this is another good option. Um, I would personally stick with the supremacy just because I really value the all allied units buff and then the draft buff, and then you'd be finishing off other tomes. But prosperity is, and it always has been, a very strong tome. And then I would stay away from any non-undead summons at this point. Another option is you're playing as physical, you can get Tome of Calamity, um, which gives you the Accursed Armors, +2 defense, and then they have a chance of inflicting debuffs. Um, we can't really use Accursed Projectiles. It gives a little extra, right? But it's fire and frost is not really what we're focused on. But it's something for your necromancers. Comet of Calamity is really good. Just a chance of frozen is enough, and it's just a good chunk of damage with debuffs. Ritual Calamity is also really good. It essentially gives you free pillages. I don't think those pillages count towards negative affinity, which is good, or not affinity, alignment, which is good. Because one of the biggest problems of playing pure good is you can't pillage things, or you can pillage very few things, right? You can probably just pillage the Spelljammer and maybe the Teleporter, and that's about it. You can't go around um, pillaging provinces. So this helps with that. And we are pretty light on siege projects. We essentially only have the siege project from Tome of Subjugation, so getting a second siege project is pretty strong. I wouldn't mess around with the Desecrate Land or the Calamity Dragon or even the Accursed Shrine. I just wouldn't bother. And then finally, yeah, okay, yeah, because I think now you need 2 Tier 4 tomes to get to Tier 5. There is also the Tome of the Reaper. If you wanted to summon Reaper. I just think he's kind of been outscaled. Right, like 60% chance of dying on a 4-minute cooldown. And other than that, he's just like meleeing. Um, it's. I think he's and he's I don't know. I think the angels are better as your summon of choice. Um, Soul Siphon Rituals are really good siege project though, so that's an option. Great Reanimation's okay. Mark for Death is okay. I just think this tome doesn't really offer you anything. If you want a siege project, I'd rather take Calamity, and you already have a good summon, so I don't think Reaper is where we want to be. Yeah, so those are my Tier 4 recommendations, and then obviously for 5, we're going to take the Tome of the Eternal Lord. You could take God Emperor, but that's only really good if you have like a giant or a dragon general, so that you can buff him up. Where is it? Here we go. And we already have Resurgence from our heroes. We don't really do Faithful or Zeal. Exalted Champion's really the only reason you do that. So I think it's 100% Eternal Lord, because Battlefield Reanimation, absurd. Like, this spell's ridiculous. It means you basically can't lose a battle. Withering Mist, also crazy. Blind turning off retaliation attacks is insane. Weaken's okay, but 3 stacks is a lot. So being able to drop Withering Mist, and then like so what I like to do is, because I went Wizard King, you cast Withering Mist, and then you pop your double spell, and you cast Anthem, and that's just a crazy start. If I was able to ramp up enough Astral Affinity to get you can cast spells turn 1, it'd be ridiculous. But I think that's really strong. Raise Undead Army, at this point in the game, I don't think this is good enough. If you need to replenish badly, or like just need an emergency defense somewhere, I can see it, but um, I just don't think it's worth it at this point in the game. And then True Death Magic really just puts your Necromancers into overdrive. Um, this essentially turns them all into the Reaper from earlier. So I really just can't see a world where you'd use the Reaper. Either it kills them or it just does a bunch of unresistible damage. Like it's crazy. Um, yeah. So that's that. And then after you get that, if you're still going, ideally you want to try and end the game between when you finish your Tier 4 Tome Revenant and by the be closing it out by the Lord. Even though we're very research focused, you don't want the game to drag on too long, just in case someone else has some sort of combo that they're trying to do or whatever. This is your sort of power spike Tier 4, and then you want to sort of draft up your armies and start running over everyone, and then forcibly vassalizing them. And then by the time you get this should just make you unable to lose big combats where you have enough mana and souls to cast everything. So, yeah. Additional things you can get. Again, I think Tome of Calamity is very strong for the Ritual, the Comet, the Armors. You definitely want to pick after 5 a tome with a siege project, so I'd either pick Calamity or Prophecies. Prophecies is good because you have a huge AoE buff. It counts as order, so you can get the order buff structure. And again, it's all friendly units, so this is just like super strong. Oracle's okay. I was just playing where I found it. I prefer the Necromancer still, but it's because it can strengthen undead for free. But this is fine. It gives things True Strike. But you really want the Foresee Downhaul. It's just crit chance for the duration of combat, great for morale. Precognition is just free, free defense, and then free 10% fumble is good. And then this is okay. You're not really going to be using defense mode much, but might as well. And then Temple of the Prophet's really strong. This doesn't work with support units, sadly, so there's no point in getting it. But yeah, you're mostly here for Battle Divination and Foresee Downfall. Which I think is enough for taking the tome. You also get another Astral Affinity for your trouble. And then after that, I'd probably get Prosperity just for the little bit of econ. Like finish off with just Prosperity and Calamity, so you can get your both of the armors and Saves of Grace and stuff. Yep. And then by then you really should be finishing the game. I just, like I said, dragged it on a little extra. But all right, that was everything, I think. Yep. I'm just trying to think of nope, that's everything. All right. So thanks for watching. If you made it this far, I definitely rambled on probably a little too much. But I'll have all the builds linked in the description. I hope some of the additional commentary was valuable. And yeah, peace.